My name's Elena Martinez, and I was 24 years old when my whole world turned upside down. I'd just finished a brutal set of midterms at UCLA's medical school, and all I could think about was getting home to Fresno for a few days. 3 hours on the road, my old Honda rattling with every mile. I was dreaming of mom's tamales and crashing in my childhood bedroom. It was late afternoon when I pulled into the driveway, the sun dipping low, casting long shadows across the front yard. But something was wrong. Dead wrong. There was a "for sale" sign stabbed into the grass, its red letters screaming at me. The house looked empty. No curtains hung in the windows, no bikes leaned against the garage. I got out of the car, my legs shaky, and walked up to the porch. That's when I saw them. 4 black trash bags, bulging and tied shut, sitting there like they'd been tossed out with yesterday's garbage. My stomach churned as I knelt down and untied one. Inside were my clothes, my medical textbooks, even the silver necklace Mom gave me when I graduated high school. My stuff. My life. Dumped. I fumbled for my phone, hands trembling, and called Mom. Straight to voicemail. Dad's number, same thing. My little sister, Sophia? Nothing. Across the street, Mrs. Lopez was watering her roses, stealing glances at me. I could feel her pity from here, and it made my skin crawl. I dialed my Aunt Rosa, my mom's sister, praying she'd know something. "Elena," she said, her voice hesitant. "Didn't they tell you? They moved about 10 days ago." "Moved?" I choked out. "Moved where? Why didn't anyone say anything?" Rosa mumbled something about not knowing the details, that I should call Dad. So I did. Again. This time he picked up. "Dad," I said, my voice cracking. "What's going on? The house is empty, my stuff's in trash bags on the porch." There was a pause, long enough to make my heart pound. Then he said, flat as stone, "You're grown now, Elena, figure it out." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, waiting for it to make sense, waiting for him to call back and say it was a mistake. He didn't. I tried Mom again, then Sophia. Voicemail, voicemail, voicemail. The sunset was bleeding orange across the sky now, and I was standing in front of a house that wasn't mine anymore, surrounded by bags of what used to be my life. I sank onto the porch steps, the wood creaking under me. This wasn't just a house. It was where I grew up, where Dad taught me to ride a bike, where Mom braided my hair before school. We were a family, tight-knit, or so I thought. My parents came from Guatemala before I was born, always talking about how they worked their fingers to the bone so Sophia and I could have a better shot. And now, without a word, they'd vanished. No forwarding address, no goodbye, just me and these damn bags. Mrs. Lopez finally crossed the street, her hose dripping behind her. "Elena, honey, you okay?" she asked like she knew the answer. I forced a smile, said I'd be fine, but my voice sounded hollow. I wasn't fine. I was gutted, like someone had reached inside and yanked out everything I thought I knew. I picked up one of the bags, heavier than it looked, and dragged it to my car. Whatever was happening, I wasn't going to figure it out sitting here, alone in the dark. That night, as the stars came out over Fresno, I drove away from the only home I'd ever known. The weight of those trash bags in my trunk heavier than anything I'd ever carried. I didn't know where my family had gone or why they'd left me behind. But one thing was clear. They didn't want me anymore, and that hurt worse than anything I'd ever felt. As I drove away from that empty house, the trash bags rattling in my trunk, my mind kept circling back to how things used to be. It didn't make sense, none of it did. My family wasn't perfect, but we were supposed to be unbreakable. That's what they always told me anyway. Growing up, it was the 4 of us against the world. Me, Sophia, Mom, and Dad. They'd come from Guatemala before I was born, crossing borders with nothing but a few dollars and a dream. Dad worked as a mechanic, grease stains on his hands no matter how much he scrubbed. Mom clocked long hours at the supermarket, her feet aching but her smile never fading. They'd sit us down at dinner and talk about sacrifice, about how they left everything behind so Sophia and I could have a shot at something better. "Family first," Dad would say, his voice heavy with pride. I believed him. I built my whole life around it. I was the good kid, the one who never made waves. Straight A's, science fairs, the works. When I got into UCLA's medical school on a full scholarship, Mom cried and Dad slapped my back so hard I nearly fell over. It was their dream come true, a daughter on her way to becoming a doctor. But it wasn't just for them, I wanted it too, wanted to prove I could carry their sacrifices forward. I studied until my eyes burned, worked night shifts at a coffee shop to cover extras, and sent money home every month. Rent, groceries, whatever they needed. I'd call Mom on Sundays listening to her chatter about the neighbors or Dad's latest car project. It felt like I was holding up my end of the deal, you know? Like I was making them proud. Sophia, though, she was different. My little sister, 6 years younger, was a fireball. At 18, she was all about late nights and loud music. School wasn't her thing. She dropped out junior year, said it was boring. She'd sneak out, come home reeking of cheap vodka, and once got picked up by the cops for smashing a store window on a dare. Mom and Dad never laid into her, not really. "She's just finding herself," Mom would say, tucking Sophia's hair behind her ear. Dad would grumble but slip her $20 for gas. I didn't get it. I'd bite my tongue, thinking maybe they were right. Maybe Sophia needed the extra love, but deep down it stung. I was the one grinding, the one they could count on. Why did she get the free pass? Looking back, I should have seen the cracks. Like how Mom stopped asking about my classes, or how Dad's calls got shorter, clipped. I thought they were just busy. They'd always been busy, hadn't they? But now, sitting in my car, the truth was sinking in like a slow poison. They didn't just forget to tell me they were moving. They chose to leave me behind. Me, the daughter who'd done everything right, the one who'd sent half her paycheck home while living off instant noodles in a dorm, the one who'd call to check in, even when I was drowning in exams. I pulled over at a gas station, the neon lights buzzing overhead, and popped the trunk. Those trash bags stared back at me, lumpy and pathetic. I tore one open, digging through it like I was looking for answers. There was my stethoscope, the one I'd saved up for months to buy. A stack of flashcards I'd made for anatomy, edges worn from endless nights. And then, at the bottom, I found it. A letter I'd written to Dad when I was 15, after he'd fixed my bike and let me ride it to the park. "You're my hero," I'd scrawled in messy cursive. It was torn now, split down the middle, like someone had ripped it on purpose. My chest tightened. Had they even looked at this stuff before throwing it out? Did they care at all? I slammed the trunk shut, my breath coming fast. This wasn't just about a house. It was about trust, about love, about everything I'd poured into them. They'd taken my sacrifices, my loyalty, and tossed them out like garbage. Sophia, with her reckless streak, got to stay in their orbit. Me? I was disposable. The thought burned sharp and hot, but it also clarified something. If they could walk away without a word, then they didn't deserve me, not anymore. I got back in the car, gripping the wheel until my knuckles ached. The road stretched out ahead, dark and endless, but I wasn't lost, not yet. I'd find a way to keep going, even if it meant leaving them behind too. Because if family first was their rule, I'd make my own rules now. The gas station's lights flickered as I sat in my car, the torn letter from Dad still crumpled in my hand. I couldn't stop staring at it, like if I looked hard enough it'd tell me why my family threw me away, but it didn't. It just sat there, broken like everything else. I tossed it into the passenger seat and started driving, no real destination, just needing to move. Fresno's streets blurred past, strip malls, taco trucks, the same old places I'd known forever, except now they felt foreign, like I didn't belong here anymore. Maybe I never really did. I ended up at a cheap motel off the highway, the kind with neon signs and creaky beds. I hauled those trash bags inside, my arms aching, and dumped them on the floor. The room smelled like stale cigarettes, but it was better than sleeping in my car. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my stuff. This was it, my whole life reduced to 4 lumpy bags. I started pulling things out, piece by piece, like I was putting myself back together. My medical textbooks, dog-eared from late-night cramming. A pair of sneakers, scuffed from running to class. And that silver necklace from Mom, the one she gave me when I got my high school diploma. For my future doctor, she'd said, her eyes shining. I held it up, the chain catching the dim light, and for a second I almost called her. Almost. But then I found the photo. It was stuffed in a side pocket of one bag, the frame cracked like someone had stepped on it. Me, Sophia, Mom and Dad at Pismo Beach, maybe 3 years ago. We were laughing, sand in our hair, the ocean sparkling behind us. I remembered that day, Dad burning the hot dogs, Sophia stealing my sunglasses. We were happy, weren't we? I traced my finger over their faces, searching for a hint of what went wrong. There was nothing, just smiles that felt like lies now. I set the photo down, my hands shaking. That's when it hit me, sharp and clear. I couldn't keep waiting for them to explain. They'd made their choice. Packed my life into trash bags, sold our home, and left without a word. If they wanted me gone, fine. I'd make sure they stayed gone too. I grabbed my phone and blocked their numbers. Dad, Mom, Sophia, even Aunt Rosa, just in case she'd try to play peacemaker. It wasn't easy. My thumb hovered over the screen each time, but I did it. I had to. Because if I didn't draw that line, I'd spend forever chasing people who didn't want to be caught. But what now? The dorms wouldn't reopen for another week, and I couldn't afford to stay in this motel forever. I scrolled through my contacts, desperate for someone who'd get it. That's when I landed on Dr. Claire Thompson. She was my advisor at med school, the one who'd sit with me after class, talking about more than just grades. She'd seen me at my best, acing her diagnostic seminar, and at my worst, when I'd nearly quit after failing my first practical. "You've got grit, Elena," she'd said once. "Don't ever forget that." I wasn't sure she'd answer, but I dialed anyway. "Elena?" Her voice was warm, even through the static. "It's late. Everything okay?" I didn't plan to spill it all, but the words came tumbling out. The house, the trash bags, my family vanishing. There was a long pause when I finished, and I braced for pity. Instead, she said, "Pack your things. You're staying with me until the dorms reopen." Just like that, no questions, no judgment. She gave me her address in Pasadena, told me to drive safe. I hung up, my chest loosening for the first time all day. Claire's place was a small apartment, cluttered with medical journals and cat toys. She met me at the door, her gray hair pulled back, and handed me a key. "No rush to leave," she said. "Focus on what's next." Next? I barely knew what that meant. But over coffee the next morning, she had an idea. "There's a volunteer program at the community hospital," she said. "They help folks who've fallen through the cracks. People without homes, without options. You'd be good at it." I wasn't so sure, but I nodded. Anything was better than sitting still, letting the hurt eat me alive. As I loaded my bags back into the car, ready to head to Pasadena, I took one last look at that cracked photo. I didn't pack it. Instead, I left it on the motel bed, face down. That family, the one laughing on the beach, was gone. But I wasn't. I was still here, and I was going to build something they couldn't touch. Something that was mine. Claire's apartment felt like a lifeline, but it wasn't home. Not yet. Her spare room had a twin bed, a wobbly desk, and a cat named Jasper who'd stare at me like I was trespassing. I didn't mind. It was quiet, safe, a place to breathe. That first night, I lay awake, the weight of those trash bags still heavy in my chest, but morning came, and Claire didn't let me wallow. "Get up," she said, sliding a mug of coffee across the kitchen counter. "You're starting at the hospital today." I wasn't sure I was ready, but I pulled on my sneakers and followed her lead. The community hospital was a squat building in downtown Pasadena, always buzzing. Nurses rushing, patients shuffling, the air thick with disinfectant. Claire had signed me up for their outreach program, helping people who'd ended up on the streets. My job was simple at first. Hand out blankets, check basic vitals, listen. But listening was the hardest part. There was Maria, a mom who'd lost her apartment when her husband left, Jamal, a vet who slept under a bridge because his disability checks didn't cover rent. They'd talk, and I'd hear pieces of my own story and theirs. People abandoned, left to figure it out alone. Every shift I'd come back to Claire's, their faces stuck in my head. I started sketching ideas in a notebook, little scraps of something bigger. What if there was a way to help them not just survive, but start over? One night, after a long shift, I showed Claire my notes. "It's rough," I said, "but I'm thinking, what if we connected people like Maria to temporary housing and helped them find jobs, or at least stability?" Claire leaned back, her glasses slipping down her nose. "You're onto something, Elena. Call it a network, a safety net for the people society forgets." That's when it clicked. I named it Home Again Network, because that's what I wanted for them. For me too, if I'm honest. Claire didn't just cheer me on, she opened doors. She knew people at a local nonprofit, Hope Rising, that worked on housing issues. They let me intern, unpaid at first, shadowing caseworkers and learning the ropes. I wasn't a doctor yet, but I could talk to people, really talk. I'd sit with families facing eviction, helping them navigate paperwork or find shelters that weren't full. One case stuck with me. A single dad, Carlos, with 2 kids, about to lose their motel room. I spent hours on the phone begging landlords until we found a subsidized apartment. When Carlos hugged me, his kids clinging to his legs, I felt something shift. Like maybe I wasn't as broken as I thought. Word got around at Hope Rising. They started giving me more responsibility. Intake interviews, grant applications. I threw myself into it, balancing med school classes online and late-night shifts. It was exhausting, but it kept the hurt at bay. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building something. Then, 6 weeks after I'd moved in with Claire, I got a call from UCLA's Community Outreach Office. They'd heard about my work and wanted to fund a pilot for Home Again Network. $20,000 to get it off the ground. I nearly dropped my phone. "You earned this," Claire said when I told her, her smile wide. We celebrated with takeout pizza, Jasper stealing a slice when we weren't looking. But not everything was moving forward. My phone had been quiet since I blocked my family, or so I thought. I'd switched to a new voicemail setup for work, and one day I checked it, and froze. There was a message from Mom, time-stamped a week ago. "Elena, it's me," she said, her voice soft like she was tiptoeing. "I'm worried about you. Call me, okay?" No apology, no explanation, just that. 2 days later, another one, this time from Dad. "This is ridiculous, Elena. We're your family. Pick up." I listened to each one, my heart pounding, then deleted them. They didn't get to waltz back in, acting like nothing happened. I'd sent money home for years, called every week, been the daughter they could brag about, and they'd repaid me with trash bags and silence. Sophia left a message too, her voice slurred like she'd been drinking. "You're being dramatic, Lena. Just come home." Home? What home? The word stung, sharp and bitter. I deleted that one fastest, but the calls kept coming, piling up like unwanted mail. I didn't block them again. Part of me wanted to know if they'd ever say sorry. They didn't. Each message was a demand, a plea, never an admission. I'd lie awake some nights, wondering what I'd done wrong. Was I too focused on school, too independent? But then I'd think of Carlos, of Maria, of the people counting on me now. They didn't care about my past. They needed me present. So I kept going. Hope Rising let me set up a tiny office for Home Again, really just a desk in a storage room. I'd spend evenings there, drafting plans, calling shelters, chasing leads. One day a reporter from the local paper stopped by, curious about the med student saving the homeless. I laughed it off, but she wrote a story, and suddenly Home Again was getting emails from volunteers, even donors. It felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life. Claire would tease me, saying I was born for this, but I wasn't so sure. All I knew was that every person we helped, every family who didn't end up on the street, felt like a piece of me coming back together. I started carrying that silver necklace in my pocket, not wearing it, just holding it sometimes when things got heavy. It reminded me of who I'd been, but also who I was becoming. My family thought they could erase me, but they were wrong. I was writing my own story now, one they'd never get to touch. And with Claire in my corner, with Home Again growing, I was starting to believe I didn't need them anymore. Maybe I never had. The storage room that doubled as Home Again's office was starting to feel like mine. It was cramped, with flickering lights and a coffee maker that wheezed like it was on its last legs, but I loved it. Every sticky note on the wall, every file on my desk, was proof I was doing something real. That spring, things were picking up. Volunteers signing on, more families reaching out for help. The local paper's story had spread further than I expected, landing Home Again a few small grants and a lot of attention. I was juggling med school assignments and late-night calls with shelters, but for the first time since finding those trash bags, I felt steady, like I was exactly where I needed to be. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, my phone buzzed while I was sorting intake forms. It was an unknown number, Fresno area code. I almost ignored it. Telemarketers loved that time of day. But something made me pick up. "Elena Martinez?" a gravelly voice asked. "This is Hector Vega. I knew your grandpa." I froze. Grandpa Luis had passed when I was a teenager, a quiet man who'd worked orchards and saved every penny. I barely remembered him, just flashes of his calloused hands and the way he'd hum old songs. "Okay," I said, cautious. "What's this about?" Hector cleared his throat. "I've been trying to reach you, found your number through a friend at the hospital. It's about Luis's estate. Did your parents ever mention an insurance fund?" My stomach twisted. An insurance fund? No, they hadn't mentioned anything, not a word. Hector went on, his voice low, like he was sharing a secret. "Before he died, Luis set up a policy, $350,000, meant for you when you turned 25. It's locked in a trust, untouchable until then. But your folks, they've known about it for years." I gripped the edge of my desk, the room tilting. "Years?" I managed. "How long?" Since you were 22, he said. I helped Luis with the paperwork, made sure it was airtight. The bank sent notices to your parents as your guardians back then. They tried to access it last year, Elena, claimed it was for family expenses. The trust blocked them. Luis made sure only you could touch it. I thought you should know. My mouth went dry. Last year. That was months before they packed up and left me behind. I thanked Hector, my voice barely a whisper, and hung up. My hands were shaking as I opened my laptop, searching for the email he'd promised to send. There it was, sitting in my inbox like a bomb. Scanned documents, legal forms, a trust agreement with my name in bold. Every word confirmed it. The fund was real, $350,000, set to transfer in 6 months when I hit 25. And my parents had known, and they'd tried to take it. I sat back, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out the hum of the coffee maker. All this time, I'd wondered why they'd left me. Had they been ashamed, like I'd first thought? Struggling with money? Or was it something colder? I pulled out my phone, hesitating, then opened Instagram. I hadn't looked at Sophia's account in months, but I typed her name, bracing myself. Her latest post was from 3 weeks ago, a shiny red convertible parked in front of a new house, all stucco and glass. She was leaning against it, sunglasses on, caption reading, "Living my best life." I scrolled further. There was Mom smiling at a barbecue. Dad holding a beer, laughing with neighbors. No sign of struggle, no hint of the hard times I'd imagined. Just a family moving on, without me. The pieces clicked together, sharp and ugly. They hadn't just left because they were embarrassed or broke. They'd wanted control over me, over that money. Maybe they thought if they cut me out, kept me in the dark, I'd come crawling back, desperate, when the fund hit. Or worse, maybe they'd hoped I'd never find out at all. I closed my laptop, my breath ragged. That torn letter from Dad, the one I'd found in the trash bag, flashed in my mind. "You're my hero," I'd written. What a joke. I wanted to call them, scream, demand answers. But what good would it do? They'd lied for years, planned this behind my back. Instead, I forwarded Hector's email to Claire, adding a single line, "Can we talk?" She called me within minutes, her voice steady. "This is big, Elena," she said after I explained, "but it doesn't change who you are. You're building something they can't touch. Don't let this pull you back." She was right, but it still burned. I slipped that silver necklace out of my pocket, turning it over in my hands. I carried it like a tether to who I'd been, but now it felt heavy, tainted. I set it on the desk, next to the stack of Home Again files. Those families, Maria, Carlos, Jamal, they weren't my blood, but they were my purpose. My parents thought they could break me, leave me with nothing. They were wrong. I had home again, Claire, a future I'd carved out myself. And now I had the truth, sharper than any knife. I saved Hector's email, locked my phone, and got back to work. The fund was coming, whether my family liked it or not, and when it did, I'd make sure it went to something bigger than their lies, something they'd never see coming. The truth about that insurance fund sat in my gut like a stone, but I didn't have time to dwell. Home Again Network was growing faster than I'd ever imagined, and with it came a shot I couldn't miss. A pitch for a $400,000 grant from the Coastal Health Foundation. It was the kind of money that could turn our scrappy operation into something permanent, with real staff, real reach. I'd spent weeks prepping, building slides, practicing my spiel until I could say it in my sleep. Claire drilled me like a coach, tossing curveball questions to keep me sharp. "You've got this," she'd say, her eyes steady. "Show them what Home Again's made of." I wanted to believe her, but as the pitch day got closer, my nerves started fraying. It was a Friday morning, downtown LA, the foundation's office sleek with glass and steel. I arrived early, my navy blazer ironed crisp, my laptop loaded with data, stories of families we'd helped, numbers proving our impact. I was running through my opening lines in the lobby when a staffer approached, her face tight. "Ms. Martinez," she said, "there are some people here for you. They say they're your family. They're insisting on talking now." My heart stopped. Family? Here? I followed her gaze to the reception area, and there they were, Mom, Dad, Sophia, sitting stiffly on leather chairs. Mom's hands twisted in her lap. Dad's jaw was set hard, and Sophia slouched, scrolling her phone. They looked out of place, like they'd wandered into the wrong story. For a second I was back on that porch, staring at those trash bags, but I shook it off. "Tell them I'll talk after," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "This is too important." The staffer nodded and left to pass the message. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and walked into the boardroom. The pitch went better than I'd hoped. I told them about Carlos, the dad who'd kept his kids off the streets because of us, about Maria, who'd found a job and a home after years of nothing. The board, 10 suits around a polished table, leaned in, asked sharp questions, but I had answers. Claire's training paid off. I didn't falter, not once. When they thanked me, promising a decision in days, I felt lighter, like I'd left everything I had on that table. But as I gathered my notes, the weight of what was waiting outside crashed back. They were still there in the lobby, Mom standing now, Dad pacing, Sophia still glued to her screen. I didn't want this fight, not here, not after pouring my heart into that pitch. But they weren't giving me a choice. "We can talk across the street," I said, nodding toward a coffee shop. They followed without a word, the silence between us thick as fog. We sat at a corner table, the hum of espresso machines filling the gaps. Mom spoke first, her voice shaky. "Elena, we've been trying to reach you. Why won't you answer?" I looked at her, really looked. She seemed older, gray threading through her hair, but her eyes were the same, pleading, like when I was a kid, and she'd ask me to be patient with Dad's temper. "You know why," I said, keeping my voice low. "You left me, sold the house, dumped my stuff in trash bags, didn't even tell me you were going. What did you expect?" Dad leaned forward, his hands clenched. "You're blowing this out of proportion. We made a mistake, all right. We want to fix it." "A mistake?" I laughed, sharp and bitter. "You didn't forget to call, Dad. You erased me. And Sophia—" I turned to her, but she wouldn't meet my eyes, her fingers tapping her phone case. "You were part of this too. So tell me, why now? Why show up today?" Mom reached for my hand, but I pulled back. "We saw the article," she said, "about your project, how you're helping people. We're proud, Elena, but we miss you. We're still your family." I shook my head, the words I'd held back for months spilling out. "Proud? You don't get to be proud. I sent money home, called every week, did everything you asked, and you threw me away. I know about the insurance fund, by the way." Their faces changed then. Mom's eyes widened, Dad's mouth tightened. Sophia finally looked up. "Yeah," I said, pressing on. "Grandpa's trust, $350,000 meant for me. You knew for years, tried to take it. Was that the plan? Leave me with nothing so I'd beg to come back?" Dad slammed his hand on the table, coffee sloshing. "You don't know what you're talking about. That money was for the family, not just you." "Stop it," I snapped. "You lied, tried to control me, then acted like I didn't exist. Sophia gets a new car, you get a new house, and I get trash bags. That's not family." Sophia flinched, but She didn't speak. Mom started crying, soft sobs that cut deeper than I wanted to admit. "We were struggling," she said. "We thought you'd be fine with your scholarship, your school." "Fine," I said, my voice breaking despite myself. "You left me with nothing, no warning, no truth, and now you want what? Forgiveness because you saw my name in the paper?" I stood, my chair scraping the floor. "I've built something real without you, people who care about me, who don't lie. I don't need you anymore." Dad's face hardened. "You'll regret this, Elena." But I was already walking away, my pulse hammering. Mom called after me. Sophia muttered something I didn't catch, but I kept going. Outside, the air hit my face, cool and sharp. I waited for the guilt to crash in, for that old pull to turn back. It didn't come. Instead, I felt something else. Freedom, maybe. Or just the quiet certainty that I'd meant every word. They'd tried to break me, but I was still standing, and I wasn't done yet. Walking away from that coffee shop, I felt lighter than I had in months. My family's voices, Mom's sobs, Dad's anger, Sophia's silence, faded with every step. I'd said what I needed to, drawn the line I should have drawn the day I found those trash bags. The Coastal Health Foundation's building loomed across the street, a reminder of what I'd just fought for. Home Again Network wasn't just a project anymore. It was my proof that I could build something lasting, something mine. 3 days later, my phone rang while I was restocking supplies in our cramped office. It was the foundation. "Elena," the director said, "we're awarding Home Again the full $400,000. Congratulations!" I sank into my chair, the words barely sinking in. $400,000. Enough to hire caseworkers, open a real office, help hundreds more people? I called Claire, my voice shaking, and she whooped so loud I had to pull the phone away. "Told you," she said. "This is just the start." The grant changed everything. We moved Home Again to a proper space. A small storefront with big windows and room for clients to sit without feeling rushed. Volunteers poured in, and we started placing families in stable housing faster than I'd dreamed. Every success, every kid who didn't sleep on the street, every parent who found a job, felt like a win against the hurt I'd carried. I was good at this, not because I was perfect, but because I knew what it was to lose everything and keep going. Then came the call from a national news show. They'd seen the local coverage, wanted to feature Home Again in a segment on community heroes. I didn't feel like a hero, but I said yes, thinking of the families it could reach. The interview aired a month later, my face on screens across the country, talking about second chances. I didn't mention my family. Didn't need to. My story wasn't about them anymore. Right before my 25th birthday, the insurance fund came through, $350,000, just like Hector promised. I sat with Claire, staring at the bank statement, and decided to pour half into Home Again. More beds, more programs, more hope. The rest bought a tiny apartment in Pasadena, my first real home. It had a balcony where I'd drink coffee and watch the sunrise, feeling anchored in a way I hadn't since Fresno. Claire threw me a birthday party, inviting our team and a few clients I'd grown close to, Carlos, Maria, others who'd become more than cases. We laughed over cake, Jasper the cat weaving through our legs. My phone stayed quiet. No calls, no texts from Mom, Dad, or Sophia. I'd heard through Aunt Rosa they'd seen the news segment, but they never reached out again, and I was okay with that. Standing on my balcony that night, I pulled the silver necklace from my pocket. I didn't need it anymore, but I kept it. A reminder of where I'd started. Home wasn't the house I'd lost or the family who'd left me. It was this. Claire's laugh, my team's late-night brainstorming, the people we helped build again. I'd made my own family, stronger than the one I was born into, and no one could take that away.